the #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to episode 239 of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments with me, your host, Richard Beckson. I'm sure you're probably tired of that intro now. I still can't believe we're on 239 episodes, but, we keep going. I love to see the emails coming from you guys. As I always say, we're a sucker for helping you. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm sure we've helped a lot of you, pointed you in the right direction, gave you contacts. You can email us info@investingcostarica.com, info@investingcostarica.com. If we can help you, we will. If not, we'll point you kind of in the right direction or give you the contacts that is necessary. There's nothing more frustrating than kind of trying to chase your tail, trying to find something here in Costa Rica, which you can very, very easily do. My saying in Costa Rica is, again, if you ever want something, you have to ask 3 people. If 2 give you the same answer, that's typically the one to do. And that counts for most things, including directions and also, references and recommendations here. But anyway, today we're going to be talking with Becky Clower. She's the owner-broker of Bluewater Properties in Guanacaste. As you guys are aware, she's been on the podcast a couple of times, but she has a visibility into the Guanacaste market, which is very, very interesting. And we're just going to be kind of laser focusing kind of on the beach towns kind of in Guanacaste, what she believes going on, and also where to invest and what not to invest into, which I think is pretty important at the moment, as it's the tectonic plates of investing in Costa Rica are shifting, that's for sure. And I think with the volatility worldwide, it's having an impact here. That being said, looking back at February, a lot of the, I would say, conversations I've been having was that February was very, very good. January was much lower, but February was very, very good. But we'll see how that shakes out also in tourism numbers. I'm expecting tourism numbers to be down a little bit for February and March potentially be down or somewhat flat. But it sounds like, again, I had lunch yesterday with a big legal firm, and they said that, February was one of their biggest months. And Becky also says in the podcast that February was one of her biggest months as well. So, but remember, guys, if you're looking to do anything here in Costa Rica, we do actually offer real estate investment tours here, guys, with kind of, I would say, owners, reps, buyers, reps. You can email us info@investingcostarica.com. We do it a little bit different here, guys, than typical, I would say, realtors or buyers agents. So reach out to us, again, info@investingcostarica.com. We'll have you chatting with someone here in the office, and I'm sure they'll be able to help you out. And again, if we can't, we'll point you in the right direction. But let's get straight into the podcast. Good morning, Becky. How are you doing?
I'm super. How are you?
Good. I was actually looking back. I think it was like more than 50 podcasts ago that we had you on. It's been too long.
It's been a while. We've been around for a while.
That's very true. Too long. But
yeah.
Well, let's jump straight into it. I mean, as we can see here, there's some volatility in Western markets recently, with all these tariffs and changes in political winds. And I don't think that that's going to change anytime soon. I think we're going to see it here for the foreseeable future. But I think what a lot of our listeners are looking to get an idea of, like, how is that impacting Costa Rica? What are you seeing happening here?
It's ironic that you say that because literally I had a Zoom call with a couple that are from Toronto, and they told me that they had spent a month last month in Florida thinking of purchasing a condo there for retirement. And now with everything that's going on, especially between Canada and the US, and like you mentioned, the political volatility that's going on in the world, but right now definitely in the US, it's affecting it's changing their decisions and their outlooks on what they want to do with their future. So it's been really interesting because literally yesterday I had that conversation. And they said, when we decided that Florida wasn't going to be for us because of what's going on right now, we didn't feel comfortable purchasing there. All our friends, there's so many of our friends that have gone down to Costa Rica, and I didn't speak to one person that didn't say they had an amazing time. And I asked them, have you been to Costa Rica before? And they said, no, but all our friends say we need to go. So I think it's fantastic. And they're coming down for a month. They're going to check out areas based on, what I felt for them made the most sense based on their wish list and what was important to them. And they're going to check it out and make sure that it's right for them. And so, a lot of brokers might tell people, come on down, let's buy. If you're moving to retire, I definitely would say, come down if you can for a month and stay in, pick your top 4 places, stay a week at each. Usually, within the first 24 to 48 hours that place calls to you, and then you can decide, okay, this place is for me. Because all we can do is give suggestions. I can't, I'm good, but I don't have a crystal ball, and I can't tell people that this is where they belong. So I think that if you're moving here permanently, definitely float around and check out places and see how you feel about them. And if you're buying for an investment and it's something you're buying based on a spreadsheet, that's a different conversation, right? You're not living here, you're just renting it out. So,
but I mean, like comparing, I suppose post-election, US election compared to are you seeing that things are starting to slow down a little bit in Costa Rica? We're starting to see a little bit of price settling in some areas, because it got pretty crazy after COVID, right?
There has been a ton of price reductions.
Yep.
We're still selling, but I think that the sellers finally are getting real with their pricing.
Yep.
I've had to pass up listings because some sellers are just very unrealistic, and they'll come back to me. As I just had a listing where I met with this seller 2 years ago, and I told him back then that his property is way overpriced. And then he just came back to me after 2 years and, yeah, I should have went with you from the beginning. Well, sometimes they don't want to listen to you. And this is an area that I was very well versed in, and I lived in that community, so I knew it better than anybody. But there's always going to be, unfortunately, sellers that think their house is worth this much when the data shows us that there's nothing here. Although you will always have the most expensive home on the block. You always have the cheapest and the most expensive. You're always going to have one that's setting the bar for the rest. Yeah. But it's hard for us when we're data people to say we can get you this because of the current market conditions. And it has absolutely slowed down. So much so that on our MLS system, which is so great to have now, by the way, we pulled data and we saw just a ton of price reductions in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Ton. So, and also, off market, people pulling their properties off the market completely, price reductions, and days on market has increased significantly as well.
Wow. Yeah, I was, somebody told me the other day that I think there are 100 homes over $1 million for sale at the moment between Dominicao and Ojochao, which is, nuts.
It is nuts.
That's a lot of homes.
And if I go back 10 years, I think about 10 years ago was when I sold my first $1 million property, and selling the first $1 million property was an incredible milestone, and it's something that was really hard to do. And now it's crazy. It's almost the norm, right? Like I think I told you, like the ultra high end buyer is still here. And then we have our sweet spot too, right? I mean, the things that are going to move no matter what's going on in the market. And obviously that's going to be more between 300 and 700, like that range is more fluid to move for sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's just when you look at stuff on paper now of like buy land and build, like getting under $1 million sometimes is very difficult. If you want like good piece of land, you're in for like 250, 350 plus, a 4-bedroom house, you're probably looking at $800,000 and up, if you know what I mean. And I'm talking a pretty basic house at $800,000. I mean, you're already over $1 million just there.
Correct.
So it's just the exchange rate is not helping at all.
The exchange rate's not helping. Obviously, it's made things more expensive here, which obviously is not good. I hope that we'll catch up, because I've never in all of my life that I've been coming to Costa Rica and living here for the last 19 years, every time that we dipped down, it always came back up. But it's been down, and it's been down for what, like 2 years now? So that makes everything more expensive, because obviously I'm getting paid in US dollars, but I'm still paying my electric in colones, my water in colon, and the exchange rate. Sure, it's making everything more expensive down to simple things like food and medical.
Yeah. Well, the central bank says it's not going to change. So it is where it's at. It's at 4.98 today. I watch it because, again, I have to buy materials constantly. So
yeah, I know. You're like, what's going on today?
Correct. I was pretty happy though. I bought quite a bit of colones at 520 a while back, so that one helped me. But yeah,
no, it's sad.
Where have you seen kind of more, I would say, price settling in the market, kind of more reductions in kind of what markets in Guanacaste, and then which ones are just doing ridiculously well, where it's like it doesn't matter, kind of really, it's in kind of a bit of a league of its own.
It's interesting because it's very area specific and sometimes even development specific.
Yeah.
And so you know, we definitely, for example, we have 5 offices along the coast. Nosara is just starting to move, which is good. We're getting
Yep.
some traction. We just had a couple sales there, which is great. But for example, the Nosara market is slower moving because they have a higher price point. So generally speaking, it takes longer to sell
Yep.
$1 million, $2 million, $3 million property. Again, we have properties that are less, but that's the trend that we see there. The areas south of Tamarindo also are longer to market, such as Playa Negra, Avianes, Junquial, you know, and all the areas in between over there. And then, of course, Tamarindo always has its market and people looking for things there. What I've noticed is that, like, this is an example. I have a condo at the Diria, and they rent so well. There was only one in the market, and I had the only one in the market. The sellers aren't motivated because it's constantly rented. And I
So
had two.
yeah.
Well, they're asking 650. I had an offer at 615 and 620. And they just basically countered back, you know, full asking price. And so we're not really motivated because it's always rented.
Yep.
So it's equally difficult to show. But in Tamarindo, the Diria, the Sunrise condos, just because of their location right up on the beach, right, are always going to be popular, and they're the top rentals in town because of the location. And then one of my agents, Lauren, we're representing a project called Mona Lux, which is a brand new project, oceanfront, on the way towards Langosta.
Yep.
And this is almost sold out.
Wow.
So we can't say that there's not buyers out there. I think the buyers are just more refined. They're more picky. They're looking for something that they feel that there's still upside potential. Not like they don't want to be buying and feeling like they're buying at the top of the market.
Yeah.
Because we're not really there. So they're looking for more value. And when you start comparing things, and I'll give you an example, the new condos, Mona Lux, you know, 700,000, 800,000, but these are oceanfront. They have an incredible beach club and amenities and everything. Well, you can pay the same, let's say, in the Sunrise condos, which were built 20 years ago,
Yep.
that don't have any amenities. So I think people are just saying, like, hey, you know, this is a brand new project. I'm going to get a brand new condo with these fantastic amenities right on the ocean. Now, granted, it's not right in the center of town, but not everybody wants to be right in the center.
I think it's better, to be honest with you, Becky. You're away from the noise, and you know, I mean, it's a great location. You know,
I agree. I agree.
mean,
You know where it is? Right next to the Langosta.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I say, that's a project that we're doing incredibly well. And we're not even having to do that much marketing. I think, you know, price point for sure. And also price point specific to a particular town. Like getting the condo that's the least expensive and has the most amenities. I think people are just looking for value.
I agree. How important is cash flow, you know, for rentability, like the renting cash flow when people are looking to buy something? Like, does it help? Meaning that if you've got a condo, 2 condos at 650, but one, you know, generates, I don't know, I'm just going to pull numbers out, 100,000, and the other one doesn't rent at all. Like, how much does that help you guys?
Oh, no, it absolutely helps, especially in the area. If you're purchasing strictly for investment, obviously it's going to be more interesting if the condo is already in an active rental pool and you literally are just switching owners and you're instantly making money the day after closing. That's fantastic because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to start from the bottom rung because you know as well as I do. I mean, I've been in the management business for decades, and I have my own rental properties. And when I had to start with my rental properties, it's always a little painful because you're like, oh, and then you have to, you know, price it lower than everybody else because you're trying to build up the reputation, get the 5-star reviews, and, you know, get the algorithm going and all that good stuff. So yeah, of course, if it's already a successful rental with its repeat clients, with its solid income, that's always going to, you know, have the edge next to maybe an identical unit that's not rented. Generally speaking, though, in Tamarindo, most of the units are short-term rented. And that's what makes it a little bit difficult sometimes also to show those properties and eventually sell them because it's hard to get in there, especially right now since we're in the middle of high season. We also had a very strange, and I don't know if you felt this too, we had a very strange February. And it was weird because I was out of town when I flew back to Liberia. It was like the plane was full. But then I asked myself, where are all these people going? Because everybody's saying
it's weird, right?
Yeah, so I'm under the impression that a lot of people are going to all-inclusive resorts and just trying to get the best bang for their buck and not necessarily going the Airbnb route. But now, and I also look at what my house is doing, my rental property, because I never had 10 days open in February ever,
Yep.
ever. And I had 10 days open in February. So I was scurrying and I started playing with the rates to fill some of the dates, and I was able to fill 5 nights last second. But yeah, it was a little strange in February, but now it seems to be really picking up in March, thankfully.
Yeah, I mean, look, we looked at the data for January just from like, the arrival data and then also kind of vacation rental data. And it was weird because again, like the US was kind of flat arrivals, but Canada was down, Europe was down, like, it was just very weird. But then when we looked at occupancy in certain areas, like Nosada got hit the hardest in January. Tamarindo got hit pretty hard as well. But like areas like La Fortuna, Mamon Antonio, La Fortuna is killing it, like just continues to do really well. I don't know, that Monteverde is even starting to really come up
Love
as
La
well.
Fortuna. Like that's
Yeah.
my favorite area next to the beach. I seriously would love to spend long weekends there like all the time. I just
Yep.
like the change of climate, but that's a really incredible area, but it's also not an area that's known for having super high annual short-term occupancy rates, right?
Well, that's actually, Becky, it's interesting you say that because when we look at the data, it's actually better than the beach. Like we have 70% occupancy rates on properties up there, but there's nothing luxurious. If I mean, like $800 a night there, for a 4 or 5 bedroom home is luxurious. So I mean, we're about to start a build on a 5 bedroom, like high
That's
end
true.
home, but it's $2,500 a night.
Well, I think part of it is that there wasn't that much inventory like that
Correct.
in the lake. Yeah. I mean, I would always stay at a hotel. I would love to have, an Airbnb situation over there, build a house. That's next to my bucket list, but I need to finish all my little side projects here. But that's my favorite area. And I think, you either come for the rainforest or you come for the beach.
Correct.
Some people come for both, but if you've noticed the European market, they like the jungle setting. Some of them never even make it to the beach. And
Yeah.
so, they'll do Monteverde, Arenal, Rio Celeste, whatever. They'll go hopping around those areas. They don't, some just don't care for the beach, which I kind of understand too. So that's interesting data for sure. But I think it wasn't always that way.
No, I mean, look, we constantly look at tourism data, because we just use tourism data to really dictate where we invest as a business. So we're doing, we're just about to start a build and we're designing 6 brand new 4 bedroom villas up there as well. High-end villas, just because that's where the data is telling us of like,
Where exactly at the lake?
it's not actually on the lake. It's actually closer to La Fortuna. So we bought a ridge
Okay.
line. We bought a whole ridge line. I'm trying to buy the hotel next door as well to buy more land. But we're basically putting like Bali, Costa Rican style villas up this ridge line, basically in La Fortuna, and doing like managed vacation rentals with
I
breakfast.
love La Fortuna.
So yeah,
It still has that like authentic Tico Town
that's it.
feeling. So
And it's easy to operate because there are like, Guanacaste is difficult to operate because it's a very relaxed environment. San Carlos area it's farmers. So a hard day's work, they're pretty used to, if that makes sense.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, are there any things that you would be hesitant to invest in at the moment in Costa Rica or even Guanacaste? You'd be like, I think there's too much of that, or like, I do my analysis on that one.
I think right now I don't want to say I wouldn't invest in it, but the thing that's hardest for us to sell right now
Yep.
is development land and even single family home sites.
Yep.
And I think part of the issue right now is that with the exchange rate, a lot of people are finding that purchasing an already built home, they wouldn't be able to even replicate that home today
I agree.
with the changes in fluctuations of currency and just the overall price increase for building.
I agree.
So that right now is the hardest thing for me to sell.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, you do the numbers and you're like, wait, I can buy something that's already existing for cheaper than what I can build it. And it's like a couple of years old.
I mean, I recommend the land to someone if you just really can't find what you're looking for and you have to have what you want, sure. But you're not going to have all this built-in equity like you used to have, automatically like 10, 15% or more equity built in. It's just not that way. time will help us, I'm sure. But yeah, right now it's definitely, like you said, you try to time it to buy your materials. I mean, we just don't know, we need a little genie bottle and a crystal ball, and we need to see what's going on. Or a
Well,
magic 8 ball, something to tell us what the future holds.
I don't think anything's going to change this year. I think it's going to be around where it is based on, my conversations with people in politics and just the voice coming from the government. But, it's the election, presidential candidates are throwing themselves in the ring now, because next year we're going to have a new president. So I know that the exchange rate's currently being manipulated, and I don't know whether the new president that's coming in is going to continue with that or not. But the IMF said the other day, guys, you can't keep holding this exchange rate back. Like, they said it to Costa Rica, but this president is Trump-esque, and he's like, I don't care. So,
well, but I think that's part of what affects our tourism too, is that Costa Rica is not the cheap place it used to be.
nope.
And let's be real. I mean, the tourism and the real estate, rentals and real estate always go hand in hand.
Yep.
And when I both rentals and real estate, I was always monitoring our calendars and seeing how full they were. And almost always that was an indicator of how we were doing in real estate. Are we full? Real estate's good. Is it down? Real estate's not so good. And that was always an indicator, but it's tough right now because, like I said, I think people are looking for the cheaper options, i.e. all-inclusive type situations, or they're simply going to another place. I mean, I think there's a reason that a lot of Ticos leave Costa Rica to go on vacation because it's just cheaper for them. Like, I was just in Colombia and I love Colombia. I wouldn't live there. Loved it to vacation and everything. And it's cheap. And, I never tell people that moving to Costa Rica is the cheapest place because it's not. But for me, the people and everything else around it and the environment and the lifestyle is why I continue to live here for almost 20 years. Probably the same reason for you. I don't know. Or maybe your wife keeps you here. I mean, my husband's from here too, but I'm not going to say he's the reason
Life is great here, Becky. Like, every time I'm like, oh God, Costa Rica, I just leave the country. And then a couple of days later, I'm like, I want to go back.
That's exactly what I do.
Yeah.
And I just did that last month, and it's nice to get away and see friends and go, shopping at the outlet malls and go to Target and then,
but even here in Costa Rica, I mean, if you want a change of scenery, you drive an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. I mean, climate change, people change, like there are multiple climates, but also different cultures in this country as well.
It's my favorite part about this country. We have so many microclimates, and like you said, you can drive an hour and the climate changes. I can drive 2 hours to get to the lake from the beach. It's great. And where else? You can't do that in too many places around the world. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my last question for you was, I've kept you long enough, Becky. We could talk for hours always. But I mean, if you inherited $500,000 and you had to invest it into a business or real estate in Costa Rica today, what would you invest it in and why?
Well, as you probably know, I just finished doing a commercial center, and I can't speak. Okay, thank you. It was my first project, a very interesting one, but we got through it. We learned a lot. And I already knew before we started that project that we had a serious lack of commercial space in Guanacaste.
Yep.
I'm speaking specifically to our province, but I feel like it kind of seems it might be the case in a lot of other areas, the Central Valley, et cetera. There's just not enough, and I don't say just commercial space, but like nice commercial spaces, well thought out, well planned, real parking, because, parking's an issue here too. We literally just started to go vertical, and we were able to reserve all 12 commercial spaces right after we broke ground.
Wow.
So we had reservation agreements for everything, zero marketing, never marketing. I literally posted it on my personal Facebook, and I got a ton of people that reached out, and one of my agents brought me a client, and that was that.
Wow.
And so my light bulb went on, and I said, man, if I could replicate what we just did, I would do that 10 times over. But as you probably know, the water situation is a little tricky. So just depending on the area, it took us years to get water, but it's a fantastic investment. We're making about, I would say about 13-14% return on investment, which is really hard to make. And, and we don't really do much because I don't even manage it. I passed it off to a company because I wanted zero to do with that. I didn't get out of that business to get back into it. Yep. So I'm very hands off, and I also have my office there. So obviously I had my ulterior motives as well, but it's nice to have something that's easy, because with commercial, you don't have to deal with what you deal with if you have a long-term tenant in that sense. And they have to be responsible for a lot of the things like maintaining their ACs and paying for their utilities and things like that. So I think commercial is a great way to go. And also, if you can get into any new project where you can get a brand new product and the price point is good relative to what you're getting, it could be 1,000 square foot condo or 3,000 or 4,000 square foot home. Because like what we just talked about, the cost to build, then definitely that's another way to go as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's amazing that, again, not a lot of people talk about commercial in Costa Rica, but I've got a lot of friends that like are invested into like real estate funds here that do all commercial stuff, mainly here in the Central Valley. But my buddy's dad, that's all he does is commercial. He does bodegas and office space.
It's less
It ain't
overhead.
sexy. Boy, it ain't sexy.
It's not, but you make more return on investment than shutter. Like right. I have a diverse portfolio, like a lot of people. I have a house, I have a rental house, I have a rental condo, I have the commercial building. I'm getting ready to do the condo project in Pirates Bay. But the reason I like to diversify is because it's always good to have a little bit of everything, I feel, in your portfolio. But are you going to go wrong if you just do commercial? Absolutely not. Yeah. I just like the idea of being able to put some of my family members in a house when they come to visit me and I need somewhere else to put them. Sure. But that's not the reason that I do the residential. But I really, now that we have the commercial project, I think it's just a no-brainer, because the cost to build is a lot less in building a home, because you don't have to deal with all the detail finish work. And so your cost per square foot or square meter is much lower than building residential.
Wow. Well, anyway, I'm going to have to take you out for lunch or dinner one day and we can discuss this, because I'd love to learn your lessons learned.
Yes. I could write a book. I will write a book.
Well, Becky, I very much appreciate your time kind of joining us on the podcast, sharing all this information, all this knowledge. Anyone that wants to get in contact with Becky, all of her contact details will be in the description. But thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you, my dear. Always a pleasure.
No worries. Catch you later.
Yeah. Ciao.
Bye. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that podcast there with Becky Clower. As you can see, there are some markets that are doing very well. There are some markets that, I think that you need to kind of just think about. There's some price settling. Stuff is sitting on the market for longer at the moment. It's not that it's not selling. It just might sit there on the market. But again, I think that there has probably never been so much product on the market at the moment, but that makes it a buyer's market. And I think you're able to negotiate then, which is kind of nice. It's depending on where you are, but anywhere from like 5 to 10% of the price, you've probably got a bit of wiggle room, certainly in that one as well. So, but yeah, we'll continue to analyze the data and give it out to you guys out there. I do believe we are in a buyer's market there. I think anyone that's not being flexible on price is basically will become flexible and will call on call at some point. But again, remember, if you're looking to do anything here in Costa Rica, email us info@investingcostarica.com. We have a real estate arm, we have an investment arm, and we also have a project management, engineering, construction arm. We don't do the construction. We just basically make sure that everything is done correctly and making sure that guys don't get burnt, value engineer projects, put it out to bidding. We do quite a bit of stuff there. So you can email us info@investingcostarica.com. Also down in the descriptions are all of our contact details. If you're enjoying the podcast, guys, please give us 5 stars, thumbs up, write us a review. If you just want to reach out, you can do as well. Remember, you can email us info@investingcostarica.com. But until the next podcast, guys, I appreciate your support and we'll see you soon. Bye.
The #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.